Ashutosh,
Good evening, sir. How are you?
good evening, boss. All good, all good. I'm just sitting up. Fantastic. Okay, so you also have a fan, which I see, which is not turning. We don't need fans now for the next some more
Yeah.
time. Sure, great, great. So we are exactly on the dot of 5. So what I'm doing is, yeah, perfect. So should we kickstart, Ashutosh? Are you comfortable?
Yeah.
Everything good?
Yeah. Everything good.
Alrighty. Thank you. So, very, very good day and good evening, everyone. This is Vijeta here from Thai Bangalore. But here, the role is that of a moderator, and we're having a very interesting session with Ashutosh. So, this is about the startup stories. This is about where it all began, and this is going to be a series. And we have got someone who's a lot of experience, who has an understanding of both multiple ecosystems, right? So, Ashutosh has also got one leg, you can say, and has done a lot of work in the US, cross border, plus now he's in India, and he's also the technical director at InQ Ecosystems. And InQ Innovation has been doing a lot of work with startups and the bridge that they're creating between Australia, India, and Dubai, and quite a few other countries. But I will not waste more time. So Ashutosh has got 17 years experience, and he's been advising startups. He also runs a couple of startups in fintech and industrial IoT here. And the InQ innovation growth story is all about what he is focusing on right now. So Ashutosh, over to you, sir. And what can we expect today?
So yeah, I thought that because we are it's a startup story and it's a series. So I thought that we can talk about the journey, like a founder's journey, right? Not just my journey, right? So what a founder's journey is, and I thought that we can have some flavors around uh, the experience I had in US working with startups, advising startups, and then that experience I had here, and then how it all changed when I thought of starting my own, and then it was a disaster when I thought that it will go out all smoothly. So I thought we can start with that.
Fantastic, Ashutosh. So I will know what we'll do is I will keep rattling off the bullet pointed questions to you, and we'll keep it as crisp as possible because we want to cover as much content. Because this is what the founders need. And let's start with this. Okay, so okay, US, India,
Yeah.
differences.
Major differences, right? So, uh, so there is something that I tell when I go to a lot of schools and colleges and I talk about startups, right? So there's something that I say that India was always an entrepreneur country, right? We do keep saying that US is where the entrepreneurship is born, like with Intel, and in the 60s and 70s you can see a lot of startups, right? uh, but the business community here, the lively business community that you see here, is also entrepreneurship, right? It's an example of like entrepreneurship, right? And it can go all the way back to like Reliance and Tata's who are trying to do this, right? It's just that the technology boom rather, right? So that happened quite early on in US, and then that's what is seeing some growth here, right? And I think that's what the biggest difference is in terms of like how the US culture is versus here, right? The US culture is quite community centric, right?
Okay.
So if most of my investments, the first investment I made was I was giving a lecture at Stanford, and then somebody came and said, what, can you help some company here? And then that's how I got introduced to the startup cultures, the companies over there, mostly around Stanford first. And then what I realized was that whether you are like a one-person startup or a five-person startup, they all knew each other, right? And
Okay.
that's where you get to you got a call from like how now you and I connected, right? So you've sent some startups my way, right? So this is like the culture over there, right? So
Hmm.
they're always helpful. They're always trying to make sure that if you are
Absolutely.
running a startup, right, so that goes on,
Correct.
right?
So there's a lot
And
of, as you said, no, I mean, very interesting. Okay, so I will just catch you on this one point, right? So you're saying community centric, ecosystem centric,
mm,
correct?
mm,
And it is not really, we are not really there in India. Okay, so supposing you compare it to Singapore or Israel or the Valley, but India
yes,
is so huge, isn't it?
yeah,
And okay, I agree with you, Ashutosh, that we are not there yet.
mm,
All right, but we have done some baby steps. Okay, so
Yes, absolutely.
I'll tell you why I'm asking this question. I'm from
Mhm.
NASCOM. I worked in NASCOM. Now I'm the executive director of Type Bangalore. And you know, as you were part of INCU. We have done so much of collaborative work in the last few years, correct? All those
Yes,
hackathons and whatever we have been doing so much. So
yes.
if you say that that is what it is you've seen in US,
Mhm.
what do you think can be done here by all of us?
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, if we have to create a roadmap over 3 months, not like 6 months or 1 year,
Right.
90 days roadmap, three
Right.
to four pointers.
Mhm.
Okay, that's it. Just talk about just three, four things.
So I think the first is this mindset of there's the startup school culture, right? So there's this mindset that you don't necessarily need to go do a job, right? You can start something, right? That scare is there, right? So it's going away, right? IITs and the NITs are doing a good job and having like an entrepreneur cell, and then where students can start over, right? But that has to be like the general theme, right?
Okay,
That
okay,
people need to start, right? Because the best time to start a company is when you are in your college, right? Because your expenses are quite low, and then your reach is quite high, right? The moment you step into the real world, it starts getting low, right? So that outreach is important, right? The outreach doesn't have to be just with the the founders. The outreach has to go to like the colleges also, right? So when we do such talks, right? So these talks have to include students in colleges and universities, right? So the reach should be there, right? So they should also understand that this is something that they can grasp on, right? I mean, I'll tell you, um, I'm I'm not going to tell my age, but but about 5 years ago is when I thought of starting my own company, right? And my brother's in US, and then my parents are here. It was not taken very nicely, right? So it's just that that fear is there, that what will happen, that if you fail, right? And and the only thing I said was, if I fail, I fail. I'll move on, right? So it's not like you can't move on, right? So that thought process has to be there. I'm not saying
so,
that.
but Ashutosh, but can I just say one thing to you, right? See, look, there is also safety net, okay? So
Yes.
you could, I mean, with your education, with your backup, with your family background, you always
Mhm.
had a safety net. I mean, I know it's not a nice thing to say, and
But that's something I created, right? So I'll tell you,
so how?
my
Tell me that. So that's what I want to know from you. How did you create it?
you keep learning, right? I mean, you keep
Uh-huh.
learning, you keep experimenting, right? So I mean, I'll
Okay,
tell you, right? I'm from Triple IT Kolkata. That's where I did
okay,
my BTech, first batch of Triple IT Kolkata, right?
okay, okay. Huh.
And in the second year, we found out that AICT is not going to give us degrees,
Oh my God.
right? So right, so I'm in a college where in 4 years time I'm not going to get a degree, right?
Okay.
And that's when I started looking at like what can be done. And then I had no idea about GRE and GMAT and whatever, right? And then
Uh-huh.
it just so like it's a happenstance that I bumped into someone in Kolkata who had just come from US, and he was preparing for GRE. And my first question was, what is GRE?
Okay.
Right? So no idea, right? There was no internet back in 2000, right? So no place to research, right? But then so I'm from Hindi medium, by the way. So I'm a
Uh,
UP board student. Till my college, I had never spoken in English, right? So that was my learning, right? So I had to learn like words and then comprehensions and all that to get to GRE, and then I got there, right? And when I got to GRE, like when I went to US, right? I went to a different college. I went to Illinois Institute of Technology, and then there, the way I was working and the things that I was trying to research, from there I moved to MIT, right? So some part luck, but I would say that in most parts it's also just being hungry enough to
yeah.
keep focusing on, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying, right? I mean, when I was going to US, my mother asked me the same question. You have not taken any job? Because I did not even apply for a job, right? So college campus, everyone came, and I was not doing anything. I was so focused on getting that visa. And then my mom was like, if you don't get the visa, what's your safety net? I said, we'll see, right? We'll figure it out, right? So um, may not be the best approach, but at the same time, I was confident enough that if I'm still confident enough that if my startup fails, 2 months I'll sit at home, prepare. If I give an interview, I'll get a job, right?
Okay.
So
Beautiful.
that confidence has to be
So,
there.
Ashutosh, so the question that I want to ask you also, right? Like
Sure.
this is a whatever. I mean, okay, you don't want to tell your age, but just imagine this happened X, Y, Z years back. Things have
Mhm.
changed phenomenally now. Okay,
Mhm.
and in the last 6 months to 1 year. But what did you do differently? What did you do smarter? If you had to take a decision, go back and say, okay, could I have done something better with the information that you have now?
Mhm.
Keeping current circumstances in mind, there are different set of challenges that we are
Yes.
facing right now. What did you have
Yes.
done differently?
If you're talking about college time, or you're talking about like
College.
recent time?
Start with college, and then let's move to your starting up. The ecosystem and whatever it is, right?
Mhm.
But start at a college time because see, I think one thing that is important, Ashutosh, we
Mhm.
don't ignore education
Yes. Yes.
because the
Absolutely.
kind of networking that you have got because of your education,
Yes.
the kind of the respect that you got because of your education, right? That
Yeah.
must never ever be taken lightly or ignored. So I would just like to
And
talk
keep
about that.
studying, right? I mean, I keep studying. I keep
Yeah, yeah.
dedicating, like 2 hours, one to read about technology and one to read about anything else, right? So I mean, I somebody
Mm,
just recently gave me Barack Obama's book. I don't read all that, but sure, I'll read it, right? So I mean,
mm,
so you have to keep on reading, right? Whether you like it or not. That's the only way to keep yourself updated. So
mm,
just to answer your question, right? So if I had to go back and the one thing that we didn't have back then was resources. We had books, right? But it was limited to what your seniors told you, what your professors told you, right? So
mm,
there was
mm,
hardly any Google. I mean, you had to go to cyber cafe to find out, right? So, and Google was just born, right? So there was not like, you can find this book or you can do this, right? So if I have to go back and I had the resources that I have now, I would have done a smarter job, right? I mean, I'll tell you, right? So I went from here, I graduated and then I went to US, right? I was the best in class in terms of like computer networks and security, and then that's why I chose cybersecurity as a field, right? You're proud, you go, you first day of your like lecture for your masters, right? And the professor, he wrote one big string and he said, what is that? And I'm trying to figure out what is happening. And then there's this first year undergrad student, he said it's a prime number. So suddenly your future feels very dark, right? Suddenly you feel that you have not learned anything. Suddenly everything goes down, right? So at that point, what do you do? All you can do is you can go back to basics and then start learning again, right?
mm.
So at that point,
Interesting. Interesting.
I went back and I picked up maths book and then started with that, right? So
Okay.
so
Interesting.
yeah, so maybe if I had like internet, I won't have to go to library and I could do that at the comfort of my home, right? But I mean, the information that is available right now,
Uh,
you can make it so that you get the best out of it, right?
Correct.
We do spend a lot of time, using internet for other things. Sure,
Mhm.
there's
Yeah,
nothing wrong
yeah.
with that, right? I do
Correct,
that
correct.
too, right?
Mm.
But at least 1 hour you have to give yourself and yourself learning,
Yeah.
right?
So, but in Ashutosh, this is a question that I have to ask for you, right? You're a family
Sure.
man, you have
Mhm.
responsibilities, you're a mentor, you also have to earn money. Okay. And
Mhm.
you have your own startups, plus you're doing all this mentoring and work with InQ, whatever it is, correct?
Mhm.
How do you strategize and choose what to read, what to learn? I mean, isn't that very important, right? Because I mean, I'm not saying it's a challenge,
Mhm.
but you have to be very wise with your time and your energy. So if you
Yes,
are
yes.
so as a founder, now I'm talking to you as a founder,
Mhm.
okay, and also as a consultant or advisor, the two hats that you wear, right? So
Mhm.
for each one of them, how do you segmentize your time? How do you prioritize?
So I'll answer first as an entrepreneur, as like a
Hmm,
founder,
hmm,
right? So as a founder, my learning becomes very focused.
hmm,
The one thing that I've always done is I've never deviated from what I know, right? Machine learning came,
hmm,
blockchain came, all of that came, right? And they're all going in their own direction, right? I mean, it's not like I want to know everything about it, but my field has been always around like modeling. Just taking myself as an example, right? Whether it's like
hmm,
security models, whether it's blockchain algorithms or ML algorithms, I've stuck to that.
hmm,
I've not gone into the applications. I've not gone into like people are making billions of dollars just applying some ML algorithm. Great,
hmm, hmm,
that's your word. I
hmm,
want to. I wear that horses, that thing. I know it's called something, right? So my focus is just there, right? I mean, I don't deviate from that. You get to hear all these news, and then we share all this news about how companies are getting funded. Even in industrial IoT space, companies are getting funded. It just doesn't matter, right? I
hmm,
mean, you have to focus on what you know, and then you hone on that skills, right? So that's what I do, right? So my 1 hour in the morning is
hmm,
about learning that. um, Learnings related to fintech, what's happening in fintech, in my area, right? So we are into risk technology. So whatever is happening in risk, can we apply that? How quickly we can do that?
Okay. Okay.
Similarly with industrial IoT, what are the things that are happening? Where
Hmm.
are the gaps? Can we apply that? Can we do something and then focus on
Okay.
that, right?
All right.
So,
Awesome.
so yeah, so that goes both for business and technology. I spent
Hmm.
about an hour reading about it, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And then obviously in the office we brainstorm and then we strategize, right? So that's the other one.
Yeah. So there is a lot of deep work, but it's very focused, and
Yes,
you make sure that that 1 hour you make sure whatever happens, it's important to do it.
yes.
Otherwise, you can't keep in sync with the latest technologies or the latest happenings across. Okay. Good.
Absolutely, and then that's how you find gaps also, right? So I mean,
Okay.
it's not like I'll tell you when our first project for Jadova, which
Hmm.
is an
Hmm.
industrial space, right?
Okay.
So uh, we were pitching for a project in Dubai airport, right?
Okay. Okay.
And they were working with IBM, and we beat IBM.
Hmm.
Three people company beat IBM, and the only reason I beat them was we were giving an on-premise solution,
Okay.
right? So that's the gap I had to find out, right? I mean, it's it's not like we had worked ourselves to that, right? But when they asked us this question, is it possible for you to do that, and we were like, yeah, sure, we were ready for it,
Correct.
right?
Correct. Correct.
So and at that point, 3 years back, right, I was reading a lot about hybrid technologies, hybrid cloud and stuff like that, and that's how we were able to do that. So
Okay.
whatever happens in the industrial space, right? If you just Google, trends in industrial IoT, right, you'll find like thousands of trends, right? You can't just go on implementing all of that. You
Hmm.
just keep focus on where your company is, and then you go on that, and then you jump from that, right? So
Hmm.
even if you're starting up, if you are maybe 10 years down the line, right, you diversify like very smartly, right? You can't diversify in all directions at one shot, right? It's
Okay.
not possible, right?
Understood.
So that's my like goal as a founder, right? So as a
Okay.
founder, that's what
So
I
how
do,
long
right?
since when did you start, Ashutosh? So how many years now since you have started this company of yours, the current company? 1 year to just to get an understanding.
Sure. So Jadova, which is the industrial IoT, I started in
Hmm.
2017, and in
Okay.
Signic, which is my fintech company, I started in 2016.
Okay. So 4 years. So you can say 4 years or so is the journey, correct?
Yeah.
A very different landscape and two very separate kind of thing, right? Fintech
Yes.
is different, industrial IoT is different, correct? So
Yes.
is it
Absolutely.
different teams, different markets, different
Yeah.
customers?
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. So did you do what people say, right? Lean canvas model, business models, revenue models,
I
brainstorming.
so
How did you do?
I'll just speak about Insignic because by the time I did Jadova, I was a little more learned
Of
about it.
course, of course, of course.
So see,
Oh yes, so let's go back 4 years. Let's turn
yeah,
the clock
so
back.
that,
Yeah.
yeah. So when I started Insignic, right? I mean, yeah, you think from my thought process, right? So I just moved to India in 2014. I'd worked with one startup, so I had like one Indian startup experience. I had an experience advising over 50 startups in US, and so my education and all that in US. So I was quite confident, right? So I was quite confident that I start this. I have money, everything, and I had the right focus. I mean, I wanted to provide like risk technology models for like banking industry.
Hmm, hmm,
1 month down the line, this is a time when fintech was all about like P2P lending and all that, right? 1 month
okay,
down the line, nearly every investor in India called
hmm,
me like,
hmm,
"Are you doing this? Are you doing this? Risk modeling." And then despite having like a lean model, knowing everything about like product market fit and everything, uh, we just pivoted, right?
hmm,
So instead of having like a risk technology models,
hmm,
we
hmm,
went to credit models, then we went to lending models, right?
hmm,
So in 6 months time, I was doing something that I didn't want to do. But that was how everyone was approaching. Like I'd approach HDFC Bank for being a customer, and they'll say, "Do you have credit models? Right? Do you do alternate lending? Do you do this?" So all the buzzwords were kicking in, and then obviously then we started building that, thinking that okay, this is what our clients want, right? And then 6 months later, had POCs running, everything was running, but then we started in March, and not 6 months, around December,
hmm,
I put a break. I said,
hmm,
hold on, this is not going to work, right? And suddenly we went dark. We told everyone that we will get back to you, we're building on something. So my
hmm,
company, if you go to insignic.com, it still says that. So we went dark, right? So everyone now thinks that we don't do anything, and then it's just like this. But then we went to build what we were thinking of building. So we,
Okay.
we started with like commodities, because commodities is one area where bigger banks don't have like good risk models. We built that, and then we approached JP Morgan saying this is what we have,
Hmm.
and then we got that clientele, and then similarly with we did the same thing with Goldman Sachs, and then we got that, right.
Okay.
So instead of we started right, we had the right process in mind, but then we got bogged up with trying to find the right client for us, right. And despite everything, we were trying. We didn't enter any competitions, but we were trying our best to achieve Indian clients, and then we were trying to get that, and then we realized, what, it's not going to work, right. So then we went
So
back
what do
and
you
we
mean
saw.
finding the so Ashutosh? So I want to ask you this question. You said this word, you made this statement, like to find the right clients. So
Mhm.
what do you mean? Give me like is it that they pay on time? Is it that
No.
what is the meaning of right client? Huh?
So
Define.
right client means different things at different
Huh.
situations. The right
Okay, okay.
client the first right client is the one who's ready to adopt your product immediately,
Huh.
right.
Okay, okay,
At,
okay.
at
Got it.
at that point, money is important, right, but at
Huh.
the same time you need validation. So
Okay.
your first client is the one who's going to give you the validation,
All
right.
right, got it.
So your first client is the one who can use your product on day one,
Hmm.
right. No POCs, no nothing. They are ready to say that yes, I am okay to use this product, right.
Okay.
So that's something that everyone misses, and including me, right. I'm not going to exclude myself, right. So I went with like HDFC banks and all that, right, not realizing that the risk tech that I was trying to do and the risk tech that HDFC does is quite different, right. So
Hmm.
it's not like they don't do it, but their
Okay.
modeling is quite different, right. So they were not my right clients, right?
Hmm.
So the right client is the one who you show a presentation and they say, yeah, want to use it now.
Okay.
No
Okay.
POC is nothing, right. So
Okay.
that's your right client.
So I will go back another step. Okay.
Okay.
Like, see, you were saying HDFC and all that. There will be like hundreds of companies and startup founders, etc., who would
Mhm.
like to work with big clients like HDFC. So,
Mhm.
how do you make sure that you get connected to the right person?
That's
How
a
does
lot
that
of
work?
research. That's
Yeah.
a
Okay.
lot of research, right?
Right.
And more than the research, it's also finding the right people, right? So
Okay.
so for instance, when we hire salespeople, right, both whether it's my fintech or IoT, right?
Mhm.
So for IoT, for my fintech company, right? So we reached out to Indian Banking Association,
Okay.
and
Okay.
then we
Okay.
reached out to people over there, right, because they're all connected to everyone in the banking sector,
Uh-huh.
right. So instead of reaching out to one person in HDFC, right, who will connect you to somebody at HDFC, we reached out to like someone in banking sector, right. We reached out to some people in RBI, right, or in FICCI and all that, because
Okay.
they work with all these people. So we
Yes. Yes.
got 3 advisors on board who were doing that, and then from that we made bank connections and stuff like
Okay. Of
that, right.
course. Of course. Okay.
And similarly for my industrial IoT, right? So we work very closely with like Indian Navy, ISR, and all, right? So the first thing we did was, when we found out that there were some Navy opportunities, the first thing we did was we went to a retired Navy admiral, and then we said, can you help us,
Okay.
right? And then that's how we made the connection, right?
Okay. Interesting.
So yeah, so that's been our approach, that you reach out to people who have the I mean, it's not like you want to go to anyone, right. So you want to find out the right people who can connect you to others, right. That's one, right. And the second one is being partners with like bigger companies, right, because we are in the industrial IoT space, right. So most of the industrial is like ABB and then Siemens and Schneider and all that, right? So we went there and we said, we are happy to be your system integrators and stuff like
Hmm.
that, right. So whenever they get like a smaller opportunity, if they pass it down to us, and then we get
Okay.
that, right. So then
Okay.
you get that,
Yeah.
right.
See, but Ashutosh, again, right? So when you're saying that you approached a retired person from Navy, you went to associations and all that. Again, it was around research work, correct? Like
Yes.
tapping the right associations, making it worthwhile. See, how does that work? So I want to reverse it. Supposing you were approached by some startup founders,
Mm-hmm.
okay, to say that, okay, can you be our mentor? Can you be an advisor? Can you help us with this? And I
Yes.
want to make sure that let's talk money also. Okay, talk about the
Mm-hmm.
commercial angle as well, because time,
Mm-hmm.
value, money, making a living wage, etc., is equally important. Correct? Because you are here to also live and you want to live well.
Mhm.
What is the right approach to do this? I mean, it not be the most accurate, but how do you really make these kind of approaches, discussions, conversation pieces, etc.?
So first is research, and I'm just going to give a very fresh example, right? So this is something that we recently, because for the IoT, I mean, we were working with ISR and all that, right? So we wanted to go a little more commercial. So we were not doing any commercial work. It was mostly with like defense and stuff, right? So the first thing is you do your research, right? So in terms of who are the people who are connected to multiple places, right? So for instance, if you want to apply, if you want to get into the power sector, right? The best thing to do would be to find someone in NTPC, because NTPC
Yeah,
consultants are
yeah, yeah,
everywhere, right?
yeah.
So then you start doing research around, like, who are the NTPC consulting, right? So like on LinkedIn and other places, you start looking at that.
Mhm.
So I'm talking about like a real case that
Yeah,
we've
yeah, of
done.
course, of
Yeah.
course, of course.
So
Yeah.
so then we found out like there are 5 or 6 people who have been advising at different
Mm,
places,
mm,
right? And then it's a plain old like a cold message that you send with like a brief of what you're doing, and then if they're interested to talk,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So uh, if you're if your pitch is right, uh, I would still say that 10 to 15% respond, right? And we were lucky enough to get response from 3 out of 5, right?
Okay.
But then you have to work together, right? So
Yeah.
you have to see whether both fit, right?
Mm,
Uh, you should not come as very arrogant. They should not come as very arrogant, right? And
mm,
then the expects are there, like the demands are there, right? So whatever the equity breakdown, and then how you make the payments and stuff like that, right? So
okay. Okay.
so you got to do that, right? So it starts with the research, and then you find out like the common places. Let's say if you're trying to approach HDFC Bank, right? So
Mm,
you see all the consultants, like I said, like the Indian Banking Association, because those are all connected, right? Let's talk about a field which is not mine, and then maybe we can brainstorm this together, right? So let's say if there's a company in agri-tech, right? So how do you go about like finding people in agri-tech who can talk to the farmers and stuff, right? So if I have to approach that, I would go to like the seed manufacturer, right? So like your Rexwans and Monsantos of the world, right? And then find out who have like bases in Bangalore, right? Which of these companies have bases in Bangalore, which of the ones who are doing the work here, and then start out sending the
okay.
pitches to them. So it's a good
Understood.
like a 15 to 45-day research work before we do that, right?
All
So
right.
yeah, so that
Mm.
that's how I do it, right?
Okay. Then Ashutosh, a couple of things, right? So you started off 4 years back. So I'm just talking about 4 years. Started up. You got then 3 years ago one more company. You have got your experience. You have got your contacts. You understand sales, everything. But what about things like legal financial structuring, NDAs, contracts, hiring employees,
Mhm.
right? And with frugal like frugal money, right? I mean, you have to be very very cautious about money as well, right? But at
Yeah.
the same time, you don't be so frugal that you mess up things and get into deep trouble later.
Yeah.
How did you go about that journey?
So there are now like companies which are startup friendly in terms of like legal, right? So
Okay.
we work with Unico, right? So Amar, who's INQ, works with him, right?
Mm.
And before that, there was Vakil Search, right? So there are companies which are like startup friendly, and then they have like good startup rates, right?
Okay.
But
Okay.
you brought a very critical point, right? I mean, and I'll just answer your question in 1 minute, but before that, to the audience, right? In general, a lot of people, when they come to me, they say that they want to start a company because they don't want to be a corporate, right?
That's
And
stupid. That's not
yeah,
very
and,
smart.
and the moment you saw that, that means you're bringing yourself into a lot of legal trouble, right?
Yeah.
Plain and simple, right? So it is very important to focus on the HR
Mm.
and the legal from the starting point. If it means that you have to spend some money, you have to spend that money. There is no two ways around it, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
in terms of like HR policies and abuse policies, right? So
Mm.
that's something that is very less talked about, right? Like how the what do you do if there's an abuse or something like that, right?
Mm.
So how do you handle that, right? So that part, plus the investment, like if you're giving equity to your ESOPs and all that, right? How does that structure out? So
Okay.
that structuring is very important, right? And that structuring has to be done when you start the company,
Yeah.
right? So it's not like, you'll hire your first employee and then you'll do that. That's
Yeah.
too
Yeah.
late,
That's yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right? So
And you correct.
you're reaching the trust of the person that you're going to hire.
Correct. So how did you educate yourself? Right, 3 years, 4 years back. I mean, again, it's nothing to do with experience or knowing that you have to do it.
Mhm.
How did you do it? Ashutosh, I want to just focus on the how part of it more and more out here.
Sure. So there were two things, right? So I started the company at TechHub, right?
Hmm.
So it was in Koramangala, right? So that's where there were a couple of startups which were into
Hmm.
this, right? And I reached out to TechHub directly. I said, "Do you have anyone in the the
Hmm.
HR and
Hmm.
the legal space, right?"
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
thankfully, I got someone from Vakil Search who was
Okay.
there, right? So
Okay.
so
Okay.
you obviously reach out to the ecosystem,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So even if you are not part of the ecosystem, if you reach out to some ecosystem and say, how are you handling, how do I handle this? They will say that there's some workshop running, and then you attend that and
Yeah.
then do
Hmm.
that. Right? Back then, in 2014, workshops were still like scarce and here and there,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right? But I just reached out to them and said that, is there a legal person for startups, right? If there was not,
Do you talk about Tech Hub, right? I think Manaswini or Marcel or someone used to be there. I'm not
Marcel,
very sure.
Marcel, and Anisha was there, and then
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Shaya
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Of
and there
course.
was
Yeah. Yeah.
one more girl. I forgot her name. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
remember. I remember now. Yeah. They were
yeah,
cool, man. Like Tech
yeah,
Hub
they were
was.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Nice. Nice. Good. Good.
yeah. So got a lot of like British embassy related
Yeah.
links
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, so
Nice,
that's
nice,
good.
interesting. So, attending workshops, reaching out to your network, ask the questions, know which are the questions to ask. No ego has to be there.
Yeah,
You have to keep learning, right? You have to stay learning and all that. So, Ashutosh, now 3 years, 4 years have passed. Two startups. Right? We talked about sales, we talked about associations, etc. Right?
mm,
Challenges.
mm,
Okay, things. There is positive challenges where opportunities there, and you have to find a way to crack those opportunities.
mm.
And the other thing is there are roadblocks.
Yes.
Okay, so both ways, right? The positive, negative part. How did you navigate it in the last 6 months?
Um, 6 months. Yeah, 6 months is a fun time.
Oh no, yeah, yeah,
COVID time, right?
yeah, yeah.
So I get this question a lot, right? So, like, how do you manage a startup in a COVID time, right?
Hmm, hmm,
And I told them that for us, it was no different, right? So, I mean, uh, when the when the first of the month comes, you have to think of all employee salaries and stuff like that. You have to pay
yeah,
them on time, right? So
yeah,
that's a constant challenge, right? So whether it was COVID or no COVID, right? So I mean, when I started the company, we were paying from our pockets, right? So then we
yeah,
got clients, then the clients started paying, and then COVID happened, and then we were paying from our pockets again, right? So, but it's something you have to keep in bank, right? So it's something you have to bank, right? So we are
uh,
not, I've not taken any funding, right? So both
uh,
companies are self-funded, right? So bootstrapped, and then running on revenue that it's being generated, right?
hmm,
So knowing that, even if I can take 5 lakhs from the account per month, I won't.
hmm,
Right.
hmm.
If
Okay,
my job is done in 50,000, I'll take 50,000 and let the remaining be.
okay, okay.
Because you never know when your client says, I can't pay this time,
Yeah, yeah.
and
You
then
got to
you
be
have to
careful.
pay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course, of
So
course.
so in a way we were COVID ready because we were even if we were paying employees the right salary, right? So we're not cutting down their salary, but it
Hmm,
also meant that we were not going to ever cut down their salary because we were cutting their salary, right? And then a friend of mine, he's going to start a company very soon. He almost has the same experience as me and then same investment
hmm,
philosophy. And he asked me this, and I told him that kiss goodbye to your 1 crore salary job, right? Because
hmm.
your mentality has to change. That your mentality always has to be that your company comes first, right? So of course,
Yeah,
if you want to splurge and you want to buy something, so you obviously can take out that money from the account, but it always means that your salary is going to be lesser than
uh,
other people's salary. So you have to think that way, right? So I may be wrong, right? It might not be the right approach, but it helped us survive through COVID, right? So we
yeah.
our almost 6 payments were stuck through entire COVID time, right,
Hmm.
till August, from March to August, right? So but we paid the salaries because we had something in the bank for
Okay,
us, right?
interesting,
So
interesting.
yeah, so that's the strategy and the challenge that we face, right? The other one is a hard nut, right? And a lot of people don't talk about it. Is what happens if your clients don't pay on time,
Hmm,
right? and I can tell you that they won't pay on time. And it's not like they're mean, right? I mean,
Ah,
obviously they're signed up with you, they'll pay on time, right?
yeah.
It's just that there is like a lot of bureaucracy and red tape is in everywhere, right? So the bigger the organization, the more it is, right? So you'll send an invoice, there's a comma missing, they'll send it back. Then you'll
Yeah.
fix the comma, and then you have to go through the entire chain of approvals again.
Mm-hmm.
45 days gone, 50 days gone,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So,
Correct.
you have to put like quantity somewhere and you put it here, it's rejected, and then it goes back, right? So it
Yeah.
happens all the time, right? And, it's something you can't get around, right?
Ah,
And in that, you just have to be quick, right? So that's a very hard nut to crack, right? And nobody talks about it, right? So it's not like your client won't pay, right? It's just that they might not pay on time, and then what do you do, right? And a lot of times what happens is that let's say if you get a client, right? So they decide that they're not going to pay from this month onwards, they'll pay from like 4 months down the line, right?
okay.
But you
Okay.
have to plan right now.
Ah,
You have to invest right now, you have to get stuff right now, right? So you know but you can't plan for that. Okay, 3 months later I'm going to get that money. You have to plan for like 6 months later I'll get that money, because there will be some challenges there and
yes.
there,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Right. So that's one, like maybe this requires a session of its own, right? But this is something that is like a constant pain point,
Mm.
right? So uh, it's not like you don't get paid, it's just that you don't get
Yeah, but it's
paid on.
better that you be careful, okay? Because
Yes.
especially in today's times, if there is a delay and you're going to be in trouble, you're not able to pay salaries, pay your rent, or not
Mhm.
do your production or manufacturing, you're in deep trouble. So
Yes.
best always to have that, be ready for any eventuality. Nice, nice. So then now let's, Ashutosh, slight changing of tracks, right?
I'll just turn on the light because
Oh yeah, it's slightly dark. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, done.
okay.
There be light and there was light. So
Yeah. Yeah.
like how do you build your advisory and mentor board? Okay, now
Mhm.
that's a very critical thing. And this is not about paying money.
Mhm.
Okay, how do you approach people? Why should you? How do you convince people, etc., etc.? How do you make sure that they should not feel exploited? They should not say, "Yeah, these guys are just taking everything, sucking us out, but we are not really getting anything back from them in whatever way." Right? Very delicate. Maybe this is a very tough question at times to really address it properly. But how does that advisory and mentor boards, etc., work? How important is it? Number one, do you believe in it?
Mhm.
And number two is how do you do it right? How do you write the harmony? How does it get done?
I definitely believe in it, right? I've been
Yeah.
an advisor, to a lot of companies, so definitely believe in it. So there are two ways to go around it, right?
Yeah.
One is, do you need an advisor on day one?
Hmm.
Most likely no,
Okay.
right? If you need an advisor on day one, then you are building the wrong product. That's
Uh-huh.
my belief, right? Because you're trying to solve a problem, right? And if you have an advisor, that means that you've not had a solution for that problem. You're
Okay.
needing an advisor to find that solution, right? So in most cases, you don't need an advisor on day one, right? So you
Okay.
need an advisor maybe when you are ready to go to a customer, right? Or you need an advisor maybe when you are ready with your product and then you want to show it, right? But
Hmm.
what you need when you're starting out is like people who can validate that your idea is correct, right?
Hmm.
Those are not advisors, right? So those people are like people who can just validate whether this
Yeah.
product is right? So don't go for advisor on day one, right? So
All right.
go
All
for
right.
an advisor when you have at least a POC, sorry, MVP, right?
Uh,
So then you have a product, if you have to pivot, if you don't have to pivot, right? Because what happens is when you go to an advisor on day one, right, they'll
hmm.
say, why are you doing this? You don't have to do this. Why don't you do this?
Hmm.
Right? And then you suddenly start feeling, oh, okay, so what I'm building is maybe not right. Maybe I should build something else, right?
Hmm.
And this happens all the time, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
You'll meet somebody who's trying to do something in the medical field, and then they'll say, oh, why are you doing this? You should do this, and then suddenly they're doing something in the pharmaceutical field, right?
Hmm.
So it changes, right? So don't go to advisor till you have an MVP, till you
Okay.
have validated that MVP with a small audience, right? So then your advisor ready, right? If
Okay.
someone comes to me, a lot of startups approach me when and I say that, can you demo the product? And then they say no. I said, you should come back when you demo the product, right?
Yeah.
Because more than wasting my time, you're wasting your time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would not be able to say whether you know for instance, somebody says, let's say, let's build a time machine, right? I mean, if they come to me on day one, I have no idea, right? So whether they can build it or not, right? So that's one part, right? Should not approach an advisor on day one, right? And the second part is the advisory should always be twofold. One is people who can understand your roadmap, right? And the other is people who can, help you get clients based on that roadmap, right?
Okay.
More often than not, it won't be the same person, right? It'll be more than one person, right? So the first person will be the one who can say that, this roadmap looks right. This is the roadmap which makes sense for the country, for your startup, for everything else, right? The second advisor is the one who will be more on the sales side. Who will say that, okay, I understand this. Let me connect you to customers who can do that, right? They would most likely not be the same person, right? So understanding, right, and this is purely from a technology, standpoint advisory, right? But even if you're not in technology, not, like, let's say if you're in like retail and other places where technology is not the prime thing, right? Even there, you will have one advisor who will be more business centric and the other which will be more sales centric. So at least two advisors in two different fields, right? Because once you have the MVP, you have the base validation done, then you want to, gear up, right? So, and then you want to get to the next.
Understood. So Ashutosh, very quickly. So fintech, you mentioned Indian banks, etc. But what about the cross-border part, right? You have to get people, say, in Australia or USA or wherever it is. How do you go about that? Are you interested? Is this something that you're looking at? First question, of course, and then what's next?
Sure. So my fintech is based in US,
Okay.
right? So
Okay.
we stopped doing business in India, and I think we will hit Indian market again. But I think the kind of products that we are making was not right for the Indian market, right? So that's what the realization happened in 6 months down the line, and we changed, right? So another topic that we very rarely talk about is policies, right? When you're talking about a startup, right? The policies become very important. For instance, if you want to have a startup here and then you go do business in Europe, right? GDPR becomes a big thing, right? And I can tell you that 90% of startups don't fall, will not comply with.
Got it. Got it.
Right?
No, I mean,
So
that there's been a lot of controversies or talks going on flipping, why are startups flipping to Singapore, USA, and then the startups say, dude, I have to do that because if I want funding and if I want customers, that's the only way I can do it. So it's an introspective thing for us, but again, we are going to be careful about what we say.
yeah, so I would leave it at that. That as the three fields, we talked about legal and HR, right?
Okay.
The
Yeah.
third, very important, is compliance, right?
Okay.
Compliance of your product, compliance
Okay.
of your teams, and
Okay.
compliance of your staff, right? So if you, for instance, if I have to do business in US, right, the first question they'll ask me is, your product has to be there, your company has to be registered there, data center has to be there, and stuff like that. India is also doing that now, right? So in the last 3 years, we have made all those changes
Yeah.
as well.
The servers have to be in India, whatever. I mean, so many things. So many things.
Yes.
Yeah. Data,
So,
yeah.
but imagine that, right? Like for 70 years, or maybe if the technology revolution started in 80s, right? You could have a data center in Dubai and you can still operate in Indian banks, right? So that's like we went through that phase, right? So it's changing, right? So every country has that legal and compliance. You have to be ready with that. So
Yeah.
you can't jump into that. And
Okay.
it's something when we auditions Australian startups, right? And Irfan, he's the co-founder of INQ, right? So he always gets pissed off because he knows that my question will be that, are you compliant with Indian standards, right? So are you, let's say if you have a physical product, or like, even if you have a software product, right? Does it comply to Indian privacy laws? Does it comply to Indian, like all the laws, right?
Yeah.
So it's very important, right? So, and it's not just cross-border. We think that it's only cross-border, but it's also cross organizations, right?
Yeah.
So for instance, if you're an IoT company and then you want to sell some monitoring solution to like a fire hydrant, right, like a fireplace, so there are fire standards, right? So they're like fire safety standards, because if you put like a Raspberry Pi or any dabba over there, right, if it fire comes up, it will melt. How will it sense and give you data if it has melted down, right? So there are like fire standards in terms of like how casing and other things should be, right? So it's also like, organization based standards, right? So,
Correct.
like industry based standards also. So you have to be very, good with the compliance standards.
Hmm, interesting. So anyway, also now next question. Okay, this is like education. Like, how do you keep yourself abreast? Okay, you have two. You are okay. Let's imagine you have two startups,
Mm.
industrial IoT. See, one of the questions that always come out, Ashutosh, is for industrial IoT, how tough is it to get your prototype manufactured in India? Keep it crisp,
Uh,
but but just let's talk about it for a minute only. Easy or
very,
difficult?
very tough,
Okay,
right? Because at least in IoT, a lot of work was done in China, right?
okay,
Sensors and all come from
yeah,
China, right? So I
correct.
mean, if you want to give somebody a tablet, it comes from China, right? So it's a tough situation, right?
Okay.
And I'm happy that we're taking care of a lot of these things,
Mhm.
right? But uh, you know, not getting into the legal side of like
No, no,
the
no, no, not at all, not at all.
India
Uh,
China statistics,
uh,
right? But
uh,
it just presented a huge opportunity for us, right? And I
okay.
think we discussed it last time also that
Mm, mm,
India had a huge electronics hub, right?
mm,
There's
mm.
like a lot of mom and pop stores where you can take your VCR or a DVD player and they'll fix it for you, right? And
Mm.
they had all the necessary means, right? But somehow, somewhere down the line, that industry completely died, and then
Okay.
we were shipping everything from China, right?
Mm,
So
mm.
it's a good time to revive that industry, right? It's not like we can't do it, but at least it will take 5 to 6 years before we start seeing, sensors being developed in India or these products coming in India.
Okay.
It has started happening in defense, right? So
Mm,
there's this microcontroller called Ajit, right? So it was
mm,
developed at IIT Chennai. All our Indian tanks and navies now use that, right?
mm.
Fabricated and built in India, right? So no Intel, nothing. All of that done in India, but that has to be done on scale.
Okay.
So then only it will make sense. As of now, it's a hard sell.
No, got it, boss. See, I mean, I know because in fact today morning only I had a few inputs on these, how tough it is. But okay, from the founder's point of view, wherever it comes fast, wherever it comes cheap, wherever it comes effectively, that's where they will go. So there's no question about it. But we have to work on manufacturing. We have to go in our country. We have to figure out manufacturing.
Yes.
I'm just getting Jagat online. Just a
Hmm.
second. Let me quickly do that. Yeah, there he is. Hey Jagat, very good evening. How are you doing?
Hi, very good evening.
Yes, yes. Yeah, so thank you so much, Jagat, for setting this up and giving us your lovely platform with phone.
Hmm.
And I mean, Ashutosh, we guys keep talking and discussing, and the founders feed, WhatsApp group, and so many other things. And what can be done next? Okay, so it is a very interesting conversation, and we definitely would love to keep having this kind of in-depth resource sharing, knowledge sharing. You have been doing a lot, and for those founders who want to know a little bit more, where I mean, people like Smith are part of it, Jagat is part of it, Lagan, and everyone. We're trying to create as much of resources, knowledge, and insights, and basically build ways for founders to do business with each other.
Yes.
Okay, I'm purely from the ecosystem point of view, type bank point of view, etc. That's what we will work on. And Jagat, how are things with you? You have been listening into Ashutosh, but some questions that you have, some inputs that you have.
Yes, I think really insightful. I mean, thanks Ashutosh. First of all, I mean,
Hmm.
really wonderful that we're able to do this
My pleasure.
startup story, a brand new concept, brand new sessions that we're having now. This is the first session. I think just getting warmed up, but I think from next session onwards, there'll be lot of fun.
Yeah.
What's happening on my end? Well, yesterday was Christmas, and it's always good to celebrate some Christmas. And we're moving to the end of the year now. It's been a crazy 2020, right? I mean, what an amazing, what a crazy year, right? Not even amazing. The word
Yeah.
is just crazy.
Mm.
So yes, we internalizing, looking at 2021, very very optimistic,
Mhm.
and let's hope.
Yeah, yeah, and bringing 2020 into picture, right? So another thing that we don't talk about, and I shared one link yesterday, is the emotional, structure of the founders, right? We don't talk about it, right? I mean, we started Vijeta, we started this conversation like, what does the community differences between US and India, right? So you can go somewhere and you say that, God, I'm screwed, right? What do I do, right? You will not see that message in India, right? So we should do that, right? So we should talk about like, not just the success but also the failures, right? I mean, I'm happy to tell you that I've failed a lot, right? So but then I mean, if I fail today, that doesn't mean that tomorrow I'm not going to start fresh, right? And corollary, right? So if I succeed today, it doesn't mean that tomorrow I'm start going to, boast on my success and then screw up my day, right? Whatever happened yesterday, and you move on, right? So we don't talk about that emotional aspect of it, right? For the founders, and then for also how they treat their employees, right? And that also becomes very important, right? So maybe we'll have a session on that.
No, very well said. I think founder, yes. I mean, I think when I look at it also sometimes, I started in 2010. It's now 10 years I completed. What you can say on your own, right? It's not only Bitphone, of course, but it's all been under one organization. Every Crave is a parent company,
Okay.
and 10 years it's been pretty crazy, right? But yeah, founder health I think is very important. Mental health of the founders, definitely. It's not easy, right? Let's not. We're all very. I think all of us have done the bit of a grind. So definitely not easy being a founder. That's why I have Startup Sunday. We started because we wanted this informal boardroom, right? Because startups don't have the powers of like larger companies where you have directors, board of directors, where you can talk. It's a pretty lonely journey for founders.
Yeah.
Luckily, I have a co-founder with me, Akhil, who's joined us and doing some stellar work. Makes your life a little easier, but still very difficult. We should definitely do something, maybe a module very specifically on founder health, because today, whatever we talk about the economy going up or all this 2025, goals that we're seeing of India, I think only one demographic is going to do that, and that is entrepreneurs.
Absolutely, and I think Bipin, who's also a very big founder, and he's done a lot for the community in Delhi, right? So we talked about it, and we said that in the next 10 years, most of employment is going to come from here, right? And if we are going to do that, right, so we have to be ready that we can handle 10 employees or 40, 50 employees, right? So, and that's where
we need to handle ourselves
first. Yeah, exactly. That's what I say. So, yeah. So I just shared that emotional intelligence link again in the founders group. I'll just put it here also, right? So, it's a fantastic resource to start, right? And because I mean, it's, even if you have co-founders, it's still a lonely journey, right? So you guys can talk about some things, but at the same time, it's still a very lonely journey, right? So you need to
handle
the
yes
support. Yeah,
absolutely. I think well said. Even if you have the co-founder, sometimes each of us is also in our own thing, and there is always a first among equals sometimes in co-founders. So some have more of responsibility. But that's part of building a company, I guess. That's one of the key things. I think the emotional quotient, team building. This is, as we know, apart from sales and product, I think this is the most important thing for founders, right?
Yeah.
I would love to ask you, Ashutosh, just what plans for 2021? Anything new you're looking to do? Something very interesting? I mean, would love to hear. And provided you want to share.
That's a good question, right? So, yes, we do want to do, something different in 2021, right? And we did like a little bit of foundation in 2020 where we wanted to get more commercial clients and then get into that aspect, right? But what we have found is that, and this is something that I do with other companies as well, is that the more technology you develop, you get so product focused. As founders, we get so product focused that you forget that you might have built something very cool as a technology, right? And we did that. So we just went back in retrospective and we saw like whatever we built, and now we're trying to build a product around that, right? So just using that technology as a way. So I'll just tell you, right? So because we do sensor data analysis, so we were big into time series. I've done time series analysis all my life. So we built a product where you can find anomalies just like that, right? With any time series, right? So but we never thought of it as a product, right? So now we're launching that as a product. We've already run for the patent application and under patent, right? So I don't do patents that much, but this time we did, right? So that's what we're going to do. Like we're going to launch a couple of more products.
The only way to protect ourselves, Ashutosh, and as you said, there's sometimes, I'm also a bit of a purist kind of technology guy. Sometimes I feel, right? I don't really start business ideas thinking what problem can I solve.
Yeah.
I mean, we build because we just love to build, right? Even this whole initial video conferencing, which we started 2016, over a night, I pretty much had the prototype, the new WebRTC, kind of code working. And from there, it kind of moved on, right? And so many times we build just for the sake of building things. And then you realize that, okay, it's got various applications. But what you said, I think, is absolutely right. Patents are so important.
Yeah.
Sometimes I kick myself, why didn't I get a patent on browser-based conferencing? There would be no Google Meet, there would be no MS Teams right now. It's browser-based.
So
Tough.
just a little nugget over there. If you go to the Mozilla Foundation, I had presented the first paper on WebRTC. So the whole concept of WebRTC, right? So because we were so frustrated with like Skype and other things, we thought that it should be done over there. Right. So
WebRTC really, I bumped across because I was doing a lot of enterprise work, and I did work with Cushman Wakefield, Underwriters Laboratories, Bosch, a lot of large companies, 2011 to about 2015, 16. And it became very clear to me that, the future of customer experience is video.
Right.
And 2016 was so broken, you just had Hangouts and Skype, right? There was nothing else.
Exactly.
And 3G, right? And 3G. So it's horrible. Well, this is it. And, the way the technology has evolved, Ashutosh, I must say, WebRTC. Sometimes we take some macro bets on tech, right? Like 2010, I bet on Django Python. The whole debate was then, if you remember, Ruby on Rails versus Django. That was the big question, web framework. And I was very clear. I said, no, we are going with Django Python. I'm a kind of freak. And now you look at that, the question does not exist today.
Correct.
And if you look at even 2012, 13, there was this hybrid versus native. And I said then that we are going hybrid in 2012 with Cordova, and there was no Ionic also, no Angular, nothing. Just Cordova, PhoneGap that time. I said, no, it has to be hybrid.
PhoneGap.
Yeah. And today it's such an evolved ecosystem, hybrid. It's overtaken native by far, right? And so similarly with WebRTC 2016, that was a similar call because it was still very rudimentary at that time, right? I'm sure you'll know how rudimentary the technology was. But today it's kind of got polished and, but again, what's happened is Google has, again, now WebRTC is under Google. So you know what these large companies do, they kind of take open source technology inside. And typically, many times what happens is they kind of, throttle it slower than their internal version. And they use their internal versions for their own stuff and for the community. This we are facing like major problems. This is very tough. So I think, technology, WebRTC is really the future, especially in India, right? I think for me, 2021, since I asked you, we are really positive about 2021, Ashutosh and Vijay. I must say. We must say that, yes, past 8-9 months has not been easy for us at all, right? You just imagine, right? You start a business model with 500 rupees per month per user as your unit cost for conferencing, which you think is still subsidized compared to $15 a month or $19 a month of Zoom. But then you have the whole, we've gone through what no startup should actually go through, because it is not only competition from the largest companies, but there is no price involved. It is all free.
Yeah.
Now, what are we supposed to do? Your whole business model is kind of, but these are the moments that make us. I was talking to Akhil also. I said, wow, we are the only company in the country, I believe, who are in that kind of situation. And so what do we do? Akhil and I sit down and past one month, we've really gone on overdrive. We mail, CRM, we are looking at how do you handle external customer experience through video. So really going to be amazing. And of course, look forward to both of you and, with Ty and with, InQ and your own, business, we should collaborate more closely.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's something that I tell everyone, right? So I have an open door policy. Anything you want to discuss, anyone who wants to discuss, just ping me. I will respond, right? So, whatever way I can help, if I can connect, if I can, talk about something, I talk a lot, right? So whatever I can do, I'm happy to, help this ecosystem, right? So
I think, as you said, also the US ecosystem, right? Definitely, we all look up to the US ecosystem. They have mastered product development, UI, distribution, so many aspects that I think they've mastered. We cannot deny that.
Yeah.
But yes, I think now the scales are tilting.
And I as I was covering it earlier also, right? When it comes to sales, I think we are better salesmen, right? And it just goes back to the whole business culture in India, right? If you go to US, right? I'm not trying to dig on US culture in general, right? But if you go to Best Buy and you want to buy something, right? you can decide not to buy, nobody would care, and you can come out, right? You can listen to a headphone, you can listen to 5 songs over there, and you come back, nobody would care, right? But I still remember, if you go to a local store in a small town in India, even if you don't want the product, they'll sell it to you. Right? So
Don't
that,
let you go to the top.
yeah. So and then we talk about like startup sales is not happening, this is not happening. Boss, you're not reaching out to the right people, right? So I mean, there are people who would do anything to sell the product, right? And
No, again,
that's the yeah.
absolutely.
So
I think what
that's the entrepreneurship that is there in India. We may have been behind in terms of technology, but we know how to sell a product, right? So you'd go to a place with your father and mother, and the salesman will know that he have to sell it to the child. He doesn't have to sell it to the
right.
father, right? So we've been salesmen all our lives, right? So I think we're if we're talking about like India behind that, it's just that because we're following the wrong examples. I think we have more potential in terms of like like per capita
No
what we
doubt.
can.
No doubt. In fact, I started this whole entrepreneurship journey since I was 22, Ashutosh. I'm from NIT Ahmedabad in UP, and I
Oh,
studied
okay.
there. And when I and I was one of the first guys in college. In fact, I dropped out in my seventh sem. I
Okay.
was the only guy. Today, you have the founder of An Academy, the founder of Dunzo. They're all like my juniors.
Mm.
But what's amazing is that at that time, the only reason we started was because we believed in the youth of our country. I said, like, young people are going to build something amazing here, right? And I think that's going to happen now. We're hopefully going to see that, as you said. And we have such a wonderful services oriented sales process in India
Yeah.
versus a very, I feel, product oriented in the West, right?
Mm.
In India, it's more about a solution, sir. How can we help you, sir? Okay, if not this, we'll do this, sir. I mean, there is the beautiful customization, right? Like our food, right? I think that's special in India. So that
Yeah.
maybe that's a slight difference. We are more of a services kind of sales. We are wonderful at that solution selling, while they are brilliant at selling products that you don't need.
I would say that we are more resilient also, right? We've been, as human beings, Indians are more resilient. And I'm not, again, trying to dig on anyone, right? I mean, that's why the BPO culture was so successful here, right? Because when you get a call, right, you can disconnect the call, right? That person will call you again, right? They'll call you again till you answer that call, right? So we've been very resilient, right? And we just haven't tapped that market, right? I mean, there are people, right? You think of like Bajaj Capital and all that, right? So they were like small NBFCs, and then all they did was invest a lot in like BPOs, right? And then they got like a huge sales team standing who were ready to call. They call like 100 people every day, and then out of that 100, one will reply. And
Numbers,
and
numbers.
it's almost true for like startups also, right? You can really get, like, if you are getting if you're paying top salary for a tech guy, you'll pay probably 1/10 or 1/50th of the salary for a sales guy, and they'll make calls for you all day long, right? So we have to tap that market, right? So we have to look at that market and say that, yeah, we can do this better, right? So it's a different angle, right? So there's no India versus US. I think we are getting good at technology, but of course there's a lot of research going on, and they do a lot of research, right? But you can't beat the Indian sales network. I don't. I seriously
I
don't
think
think
the culture, I think one thing that we have to mention, and this is my kind of, even with Bitphone versus the competition, etc., things like security, privacy, certain basics, I think Indians, we have to maintain better. Because one thing with the Valley, I'll tell you, if you look at Zoom, for example, and I have nothing against their competition, it's just their culture, right? They have this build fast, break fast, all of these concepts. And I would tell you that 1 year of Zoom or 9 months of Zoom has got more negative press than 10 years of social media.
yeah.
And the kind of security breaches are unbelievable. I mean, it cannot even be spoken. The most recent one is, the Chinese, you would have read this recent one. Yesterday, 2 days ago. These
Yeah.
are very, very serious. I think that's where India, with our philosophies and the business philosophies, right, of being truthful, of being straightforward, of being honest. This is very important. And I think
Yeah.
that's where India with the data privacy now coming in, because that's going to tilt the whole business for Google, Facebook, everything, right? They're all right now in major, like, kind of, what do you call, thinking spree. What is this, kind of world going to look like when
Yeah,
people start valuing data? What
and I
happens
was
if, yeah,
part of the the team that wrote the data privacy law. So I do have some contributions to the data privacy laws in India, and the one thing was that people were ready to listen, right, when we talked about the ideas, right, and there were some startup founders there as well, right. Not gonna name anyone, but uh, it was very refreshing to see that everyone knew that they had to get pen testing done, that they had to get like customer data done, right? Whether they knew about like the compliance standard like SOC and all that, whether they knew or not, it's irrelevant, right? But at least they had that thought process in mind when they built that, right? So
awareness?
yeah, so you're right, right? I mean, I think we are in the right direction, and it's possibly one of the two reasons. One is like we don't believe in the whole Facebook philosophy of build and break things, right? So we are building something where uh, we know that the customer, if you fail, you're not going to get that customer again, right? So we are building that trust, and then the I think the second reason is that. Um, it's just that the way we have seen it, right? So we've seen everything around us being that way, right? So we build that trust and we want to keep that trust, right? So yeah, you're absolutely right. So and this data privacy law is definitely going to kick a lot of people the wrong way, right?
And I
Right,
think
it's
we
just the way
move
it
to
is.
the knowledge economy full fledged. Now it's really sitting at home. It's completely a knowledge economy. I mean, as much as it can be in full force. And the beauty is, when you have 400, 500 million Indians who are in their 20s, who are kind of, the forefront of this knowledge economy in the world. I mean, that will create the India of the future, right?
Yeah.
And so, yes, that is, I think, all of our challenge, right? Apart from us working and doing what we can, how do we get the young people who are now, in college, going out of college? I think they are very, very bleak, and then the future is quite scary. We have to, it's our job to create a framework where they can come and play hard and really, benefit. I think that's going to be a big challenge also, right? Apart from
Yeah.
the usual employment models where it may not really work, you need more entrepreneurship from their end. But how can you de-risk their entrepreneurial journey? That's in fact the way I, tell my employees also when we're hiring them. I tell them like, this is, I don't never treat it as a job or an employee, right? I treat you as an entrepreneur. You come here and work as an entrepreneur. My job is to de-risk you, like give you a monthly salary, stuff that I didn't have and I can't give myself. But that I think is critical, right? That's when we will really create pioneering stuff,
Yeah,
not just with
and I'll go
investment.
back to the first question, Vijeta, you asked me is like, what we can do for 3 months, right? So I think the part of that answer was this, that, this outreach has to reach out to students as well, not just founders, right? So because
Okay,
they're
understood.
so the second part is to cover other bases as well, like
Mhm.
sales. It just doesn't have to be with like the engineering students or anyone, right?
Okay.
It should be free for all, right? Anyone who wants to come in, should come in, right? So there is no shame in being on the sales side or any other
Mhm.
side, right?
Mhm.
If you come on board, chances are you'll get hired faster than anyone else, right? So
Okay.
that's the second part, right? And then the third is talking about the things that nobody else is talking about, right? So we are
Mhm.
all talking about blockchain, we're all talking about like machine learning and all that. Who's talking about like what do you do if you get into this legal trouble, right? What do you
Mhm.
do, if you don't want to, if you paid 1% to someone and then they're not doing anything, right? What
Mhm.
do you do if your employees react in a different way and then there is tension between the employees? What are the policies to follow there, right? What do you do when you have to take your product outside? Nobody's talking about that, right? So and most importantly of all these what do you do questions is the what do you do when all these things come and how do you handle it yourself, right? So like what is your state of mind and how do you get out of that state of mind, right?
Okay.
so
Okay.
so I think that's the channel that is missing, that's the
Okay.
community.
Okay. So Jagat, we have some roadmap that has been worked out. So
Yes.
let's figure out. I mean, of course, nitty-gritties. What time? What date? How do we prepare? How do we market it? Because, right, Ashutosh, see, it is not just that we do it for the sake of doing it. I would also like to appeal to the community and to you guys also that if you want to reach the students, academia, young founders, etc., etc. We have to have a proper plan to reach out to them and make sure that, of course, thanks to Jagat, the Vidphone TV is there. It's there on their, YouTube and Facebook and everything. But the live interaction is what really matters. Okay.
Yes.
So that's something that we have to bring some people together. Of course, EQ is there and all that is there, and we always support the ecosystem. But we need to bring in more partners.
Yes.
Okay, so that's something that we have to work out. See, Achyuta, I'll be very blunt out here, right? We are doing the Startup Sunday tomorrow. So Jagat, we only have one founder who has come in, right? As of now, of course.
No, I came.
No. Okay, sorry. Not that way. What I meant to say is that we have done 10 episodes.
Okay.
Right? And we wanted to, see, Sunday comes only once a Sunday.
Okay.
Or 4 times a month, right?
Yeah.
So we need to find at least 1 or 2 founders each time. So every month we need 8 to 10 founders. We need 8 founders. Yeah, we need 6 to 8 founders every month, fresh, because we can't repeat at least every quarter, right? But I see a lot of reluctance, Ashutosh.
That's where the community difference is. That's we have done a lot, we're doing a lot, but that's the community difference, right? So we don't want to come and talk.
Okay, so leave all that. Now you tell me. We want someone for tomorrow evening. You tell us from your InQ, and preferably if you can get it has to be a co-founder, right? And if you can get a woman entrepreneur, great. If not, no problem, because I know it's just 10% of the thing. But from you, we need one co-founder to join us tomorrow. What time is it? 6:30.
Done.
We have Naval is there from Plugo. So Naval
Plugo, and then now he's doing something called Glowworks. I think. Naval, good friend of mine from Nasta.
Okay.
So he's confirmed for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
you reach out.
Yeah. Okay. Done. Yeah. So we need one person for tomorrow, 6:30. So just tell Jagat will, that's number one. And also, see, Ashutosh, it's not Saturday, but because of work timings and look, I've been driving it with Jagat, but one thing that Jagat and we keep talking, right? We want to change this. We want one day where someone else comes to do the League of Extraordinary Startups, right? Again, focus on one spotlight, and we want a community angle to it. So, we're trying to build all this. You're doing it in InQ. You had a very beautiful session, I think, last Saturday, if I'm not mistaken, right? You did it at 11 to 12. You had done something very nice. Was it a Sunday or was it a Saturday? I can't remember now. I think it was a Saturday morning session, right? So we can combine forces. We want to do more. And of course, I will always say this. We are all talking about sales and money. How do we sustain it? Because Jagat is a founder himself. Like he's paying a lot of money for the, whatever, this cloud and this and that and everything, right? So, so that's what I'm saying. So even community, guys, how does it get sustained? How do we involve the right people for the right reasons? Not like they're coming in and, just grabbing the spotlight or whatever it is and messing up things. We have to be so careful about that, right, guys?
Yeah.
So, and okay, with you, Ashutosh, I think what you have said, I'm just repeating it, right? Handling legal issues, learning sales, understanding, how to handle employee conflict, how to, look, things like NDAs and MOUs, and Jagat spends, I think, more time with his chartered accountant sometimes than with his own family or whatever it is.
Past week was still crazy.
Yeah.
Now because we have to do the AGM, so I had the AGM on 31st.
Correct. Yeah, you have to do it at December 31st. Don't forget about all this, whatever the situation is. You have to do your AGM. That's it.
Additional, money. Obviously, it's not easy because we also have some foreign investors.
Yeah.
So, compliance is, it's a pain. Especially for a founder like me, when we are so much into product, I have so much of work on product, so much, my sales pipeline, what I need to do. And I need to go to my CS and, go through all my this thing and, file. It's crazy.
Yeah. So I think, Ashutosh, you hit the nail on the head, right? These are some of the things that no one talks about. But these are so critical and so necessary if you want to survive long term.
Yes.
Okay. And I think that's what we'll work on it together, of course.
Yeah,
we'll jot down the notes and everything. So guys, it is 6:13 right now. So we are almost 75 minutes into the So I always keep an eye on the time.
I will excuse myself. I'll leave you both gentlemen to carry on.
Yes. Okay, but thanks, Jagat.
Thanks, Jagat.
Yeah, one thing I just one note, Vijita, I just want to say, as
please.
Doing things for the right reasons, right? How do we get the community to kind of, come? So I think the best way, I think, to do that is for the people like us, for example, 3 of us, or the other people who might involve. We just be genuine about it and do our thing. I think the best way is to just kind of set the example for yourself. And if people want to come and let them come, it's like there was this wonderful, just a minute before I go, there was this, kind of video that I saw where it's a beach, right? It's afternoon on a beach, very sunny, and people are just lying down, sunbathing. Suddenly, one person goes and starts dancing near the beach. And then suddenly another person comes and starts dancing with him. And then after some time, 2 more people come in. And within about 10-15 minutes, the whole beach is dancing all around them. It just takes that one guy, I think, to go and start dancing by the beach. It's very simple. So sometimes things may work. So let's hope that works.
It's about 15 years ago. I was in US, and I was no more than 15 years ago. So I was a student, right? So and I was doing some part-time job, and it was Friday, and the restaurant was open. And I was doing a part-time job at a restaurant, right? The whole day there was only one customer, right?
Wow.
And so I asked, I asked the owner, isn't it loss, right? So he said, I make most of my money on weekends, right? So Saturday and Sunday. So then, he said that maybe the question in your head is that, you open the restaurant lesser time over the weekdays, and then make that over the weekends, right? And then he said something which I'll never forget. He said, even if one person walks into the door, your shop is always open, right? And and that's the philosophy I believe in, right? Even if one person is listening, you still have to speak, right? You can't be that, oh, it's a very small audience for me to speak, right? You always have to give it your all, even if one person is listening, because you are going to change that person's life. Right?
No, I think, and most important to keep that absolute frame of reference, Ashutosh. I mean, it really doesn't matter what, I think people will come, people will go. That's different. We do things because we like to do it, right? That can never stop. That's, I think, a critical thing. All right. Thanks. Have a wonderful Saturday, and let's connect again. It's been really pleasure, Ashutosh. Thanks so much. Thanks, Vijeta, as usual. We shall connect again later in the day. Thank you so much.
Continue. Take care, man. Cheers. Bye. Alrighty. So good. I was listening into your conversations, and I'm of course taken down notes also, Ashutosh. Right. Students, academia, building the trust. Right. The resources that we can share, and you have been sharing, of course, lots of resources which we have been giving it to the community. And yes, this is a reach out to the communities. We are live on Facebook, etc., and contribute, pay it forward. Build the community ecosystem, because 1+1 will be 11. That's the strategy that we have to use. We have to build innovation clusters. And yes, government is involved, academia is involved, startups, founders, but it's the responsibility of the startup founders to build it. Because ultimately, I think, Ashutosh, that's what really matters, isn't it?
Yeah, and responsibility of just startup founders not to just build, just to open up, right? I mean, there could be multiple reasons. You don't want somebody else to know what you're doing. You're scared to open up and speak publicly, right? But even if you go and listen, right, it changes. It makes a lot of difference, right? And eventually you'll come to a point where you start contributing, right? So we've always had that, if you remember school, the teacher would ask a question, almost 30% would know, but nobody would raise a hand, right? So, right. So that happens when we started the company also. We are just maybe not confident, maybe just don't want to speak about it. So, but we've kept it to ourselves, right? But if we want to build a community, if we want to see startups being the whole sole focus in India for the next 10 years, we have to come together, right? I mean, we have to talk to each other, right? Whichever way possible.
Perfect. Hey, thanks, man. So that was very insightful. And Ashutosh, looking forward to working with you and collaborating with you to build more and more. Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of wonderful work that you're doing, and of course, and also as a founder, I wish you all the very best with your 2 startups.
Thank you.
May you grow. May the sales keep coming in. Make the dollars and euros or whatever currency, rupees, everything that you want to get in should get in. And would love to also get your insights later on on this manufacturing part for IoT companies. Okay, because this is something that because you're right. I was part of the NASSCOM Center of Excellence. We have been part of this IoT forum and so many other things. So we have been struggling. I mean, a lot of startups are coming up and struggling with these things, right? And it's not an overnight solution. I'm not even trying to say that you can give a cure for everything, but maybe some pointers around that. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And let's see how it goes. And Startup Sunday. So we're looking for one more co-founder. Yeah. So we already have Naval from Plugo for tomorrow. I
Okay.
didn't say it right. Okay, just to let everyone know, we have done 30 episodes of League of Extraordinary Startups. We have
Yes.
done 10 episodes of Startup Sundays,
Mm.
and of course with Ashutosh now we have started the startup stories, and it's the first episode.
Mm.
But we want to build. It's about ecosystem, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I shared about the YouTube channel that Thai Bangalore has. Ashutosh, we have
Mm,
like
I
some.
saw that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. I mean, man, whatever you want, yeah, insights, knowledge on EV, you want on smart villages, urban, green urban standards,
Mm.
and 5G telecom, or you want on space technology, or you want on what are embassies doing, what are
Mm.
top accelerators like Loves doing, whatever. And Ashutosh, of course, InQ is also doing so much of work. So the resource is there, but that research work, that homework, that ability to sell, that ability to reach out and make a connection, warm connection with people is also
Mm.
skill set, isn't it?
Yes, yes, absolutely. And one challenge in that connectivity, or connecting to right people, is the scarcity of information, right? We only look at LinkedIn, right? For finding out the right people, right? But sometimes there are other means also, right? So, for instance, if you're trying to get a government project, right, it's best to go to that. Let's say if you want to do something for the transport, right? So it's best to go to the Ministry of Transport website. They would have a startup section. They would have some projects listed out and
Yeah,
some
yeah,
ways
yeah.
to connect, right? So that's the best way to sometimes get around it, right? And I know personally, because 3 years ago I was working with Niti Aayog, and then I was the one who wrote that how US every department does that, right? And then the Indian departments of commerce and other places started doing that
Mm,
also.
mm.
So I know with Startup India they have started to promote it also, that different government sectors are doing that work also, right? So if you want to collaborate with government, you don't necessarily have to look for people on LinkedIn. You just go to the website and then you might find something, right?
Mm,
And then
mm.
of course there are the ecosystems also, like Thai is there, Startup India is there. So all these
Yeah, yeah.
ecosystems, including INQ, will help connect in some way or the other,
Mm,
right?
mm.
So don't just think LinkedIn is the only way to connect to the people, right? So
Yeah.
the ecosystems are always ready to help, right? So NASCOM, hey, all these are there to help.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Fantastic, boss. Done. It's a great time, and thank you so much, Ashutosh, for preparing yourself also, because I mean, we should appreciate that. It's all easy to come and give gyan, but what you have done is you have prepared, you have given very quality insights,
Mm.
and also a roadmap, right? Next 90 days, what can we do? What are
Yeah.
the sessions that we can focus on, etc., etc. Hey, brilliant, man. So, and I think there are some people asking what's going to happen. Yeah, just as Jagar is just saying,
Mm.
please, yeah, guys, Akshay and everyone else, we're sharing a lot of information on our timelines, on the WhatsApp groups, etc., etc., and we will take it forward. All right.
Yes,
Thank you so much, Ashutosh. And any parting message before we say bye to everyone?
uh, yeah, stay hungry, start learning. If you're learning, learn more, right? And then all the very best to all the founders, everyone starting, about to start, or doing something, and let's make India the global place.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. That'll be
That's what I
awesome.
believe in, right?
Of course, of course, of course, totally. All right.
All
Take care,
right.
sir.
Take care.
Have a wonderful weekend, and we will catch up more often, of course. All right. Take care. Thank
All
you,
right.
sir.
Take care.
Cheers.
Bye.
Enjoy. Enjoy. Bye bye. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah.